Hello and welcome to PitchZone, a weekly gathering of coaches that usually help one presenter with a short pitch, to fine-tune a short pitch. But from time to time we have these special episodes, and today is one of these days. We are going to talk about persuading versus selling. And I am really, really delighted to have this conversation together with some of the top coaches that are part of PitchZone. The first one, Nathan Gold, hailing from San Francisco, a
Hello.
pitch coach, presentation coach, extraordinaire, and a person who really, really knows how to sell without selling. So, Nathan, how are you today?
Fantastic. We have a bit of sunshine here in Northern California for a few more minutes until it starts raining for the next 14 and snowing for the next 14 days.
Oh
my goodness.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's serious. We've never seen anything like this before.
Amazing. Amazing. All right, Nathan, I'm going to bring in our next coach, Susan Trumpler. And Susan, it's such a delight always when you join us here at PitchZone. How are you today?
Outstanding. And it's always a pleasure to be here with you guys. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolute great joy. And I'm so looking forward to your input today, Susan, because you are the author of the book, Oh Shit, I'm in Sales. And that, of course, is all about selling, or I think it's actually more about persuading. But we'll see the difference between those two in just a moment. So let me bring in. Yeah, it will be a fun conversation for sure. So let me bring in our fourth member here today, and that is Michael Marchuk. Michael is an angel investor, a C-level executive. And Michael, how are you today?
I am very well, and I am super excited to have this opportunity to hang out with a bunch of really good pitch coaches, because I am not one, but I love being here to be able to help folks who are trying to sell and grow their business.
I think your nose just grew a little bit there because, you don't need to be a formal or an official pitch coach. Like both Nathan and I, we don't carry a card or something that says, you are a certified pitch coach. Not at all. So I always love your input, your insight, Michael, and I look forward to hearing what you bring here to the discussion as well. And we have a couple of viewers on YouTube as well. So if you want to say hi in the comments quickly so we know who's out there, and maybe let us know where are you joining us from, would be absolutely fantastic. So let's get started. As I mentioned before, Susan, you wrote the book, Oh Shit, I'm in Sales. So let's start with you. Susan, what do you consider the big difference between selling and persuading?
Oh, this is my favorite topic to talk about, Claudio. And the reason that I wrote the book was because everywhere I went and every small business owner I spoke with, when they heard that I was a sales coach, they would say, ooh, I don't like selling. I feel pushy, I feel sleazy, and I just would do anything rather than have to sell. But we all know how that ends up for our businesses, right? So I talk a lot about the topic today around the mindset of what you consider sales. And really, it does come down to the fact that you're always selling in your life. You're always selling something. You're selling your kids, go to bed tonight, go to bed on time. I'm going to tell you why, right? You're selling your spouses, your partners, where you want to go to eat. It's all a form of persuasion. When it crosses the line into sales that get uncomfortable for people is when they are asking for something. They're thinking that what they're selling, they're pushing at people and they're asking for money in return. And that that if you had to ask anyone their definition of sales, I think that's what they would say it would be. Well, I have to get them to buy my products so they'll give me money, right? And that perspective around sales is what causes the angst that everyone has. And the way I like to talk about it is, listen, whatever you're good at, whatever you decided to open your business for, you've trained highly for this. Okay, I'm going to make that kind of a assumption, right? That you are good at what you do. You've taken time to create something really valuable, and you are not pushing something at someone as much as answering a problem they have in their lives that they would thank you for. So how can you help them see the value of it? How can you persuade them to understand how this can make an impact in their lives, and in essence influence them into seeing the same thing that you see, enough so that they're willing to take action and move to the next step with you? To me, that's the difference between sales and persuasion and influence.
Yeah, I would agree. And how many people have we known in our lives where we've gone into the situation, like you said, I don't want to be in sales. It's probably because they've been sold before. That someone
Yes.
has gone to them and they've experienced that, where they're in a situation where it was the classic used car salesman. You're there for a reason. You have a need. You need a car. But then there's a used car salesman there who has a need to get you into whatever car you will leave the lot with the most money in his pocket. So there's a definite imbalance in the transactional viewpoint of what's going on. The challenge you have with in identifying it as a salesperson, because I often say I'm in sales, and the reason why I say that is twofold. One is it's true, but the second is when someone asks me what I do and I don't want to talk about it. So, because nobody wants to talk to a salesperson, right? They just don't. So if you're in a situation where you're like, hey, no, what do you do? I'm in sales. Oh, okay. All right. And they'll look for something else to do, right? Because nobody wants to say they're in sales. But the reality is, for entrepreneurs or folks who are developing the solutions for someone's real problem, it should be very natural in terms of what you do. And the way I approach it, I call it a dinner party pitch. When you're at a dinner party, you're sitting next to somebody, so they ask what you do, and you actually want to talk to them. You don't want to tell them you're in sales. And you want there's a way, hey, what do you do? What's your thing you're working on now? And you're passionate about it. You're going to go on and on. Like, well, I've just discovered this cure for cancer, and it's just amazing. And it's really very straightforward and simple. It took me a long time to figure it out, but it's fabulous. And so that's what I've been working on. Is that where the conversation is going to end? Do you think? No, people are going to go, hey, that's amazing. Tell me more, right? Now, maybe they don't have a cure for cancer, but maybe you have something that someone is really interested in. Hey, I developed this thing where I know we talk about folks that we know develop this coating that once you put it on glass, nothing will stick to it. And it's really interesting. It's not just for glass, though. It's for anything. I mean, you put stuff on anything, and it just nothing sticks. So it's been really cool. It's more chemistry related, but it's kind of cool. People are going to ask, nothing sticks at all? Like, no. It's very interesting, and it could be applied to anything. Really? Like what? Well, like your windshield, or perhaps your glasses, or whatever. Now all of a sudden, there's a conversation, and that conversation is the selling. Because now people are asking, is like they're interested. I have a need. I think that product's very interesting. I want to know more about it, and they're going to ask you questions. So it's a pull rather than a push, as you mentioned, Susan.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. The difference is the push or the pull, and creating curiosity and feeding into something that is interesting and desired by someone so that they can picture themselves in getting that result and getting that, I want something that doesn't stick to my glasses. How do I get my hands on that? So you can see that Michael wouldn't even have to pitch me or try to sell me. It's like, oh, really? There's something out there that'll do that? I want some of that. How do I find it? How do I get it? When you can create that kind of energy between you and the person you're chatting with, that is the nirvana, because you are selling without selling. You're really just helping them see what's available and drawing them closer to, like, how do I get that? How can I get that? Michael, to go back really quickly to the beginning of what you were talking about around mindset and having been sold to, nobody wants to be sold to. And if you think about the quintessential used car salesman, I kind of feel bad for them because they're not all bad, but they get a bad rep. But the quintessential car salesman is like a shark that sees blood in the water, and they're what's in it for me? How can I get something for me fast? And to me, that's sales. Anything else is creating a partnership or a relationship that is mutually beneficial and really gratifying. That's the difference.
Wow, what a great start of this conversation so far. And I think we are already starting to crystallize one thing. And this is something that I've based my entire career on, is that belief that sales, or persuasion actually, is nothing else than the transfer of enthusiasm, right? And so when we think about, the first time you bought a smartphone, for example, why did you choose the one that you chose? Chances are some of your friends was showing you their new gadget, and they were so excited and so enthusiastic about it that a bit of that enthusiasm jumped over to you, and you were sold without anybody actually selling it to you, right? Nathan, what do you think?
Well, I really love the push and the pull that we've just identified here, especially for everybody listening. I mean, we all think about this quite often, but for those of you listening, the push and the pull, if all you did was just think about when you are trying to sell or persuade, are you being too pushy? Are you pushing yourself onto people, or are you pulling them into your world? I haven't used the push pull, but I plan to use that from now on. It's an excellent way to just immediately frame in your mind what you're doing or what you want to be doing. So if you're like me and you're one of those people that don't like to be pushy and don't like to sell, the truth is we all like to buy, but we don't like to be sold, right? You've all heard that before. So how do you know you're being sold? When you're being pushed, when they're being pushy, how do you know you get it, right? So in my early career from 1980 to 1984, I ran around the world with really top-notch salespeople. And the biggest joke was, Nathan, you've got to do the demo, because as soon as I start speaking as a salespeople, people don't believe me, but they'll believe you because you're technical. Okay, great. So I thought, well, I never want to be in sales if people aren't going to believe me because I carry the title of sales. So I've always stayed the course of being technical. But then one day I realized, as a technical person giving a demo, I'm not there to really, yes, I'm there to help sell the product, but I never felt comfortable doing that. I always felt sleazy, and they were teaching me these closing techniques and all of this sales language, and it just didn't feel right until 1984 when I picked up this book, Influence by Robert Cialdini. This changed my life because he identified the 6 principles of persuasion that we all use every day anyway. If we're getting what we want in life, we just don't realize it. But what that book did for me is it made me realize that I can pull people in, to use the language that we just came in, versus pushing people to make a decision. And once I realized, okay, I can switch what I'm saying and feeling towards the people, I got much more comfortable, and it was more fun, and people started asking better questions. I didn't feel like a salespeople. I can't more highly recommend that book, in addition to Susan's. But that book is still the Bible of persuasion, and it really shows you all the different examples and situations and how you can use it to help you get more out of life in an honest, authentic way.
Oh man, that was good, Nathan. I love Cialdini. I love all of his principles in that book. It is the Bible for how to sell with integrity.
Yeah.
right? And it's funny because what you're doing and what Cialdini is all about is connecting with the very way that people love to be communicated to. So he's just really highlighting, like you said, what we do naturally. And when we get into sales tactics, there's a lot of guerrilla sales and guerrilla marketing kind of techniques, and we've all seen them done, that just makes us shiver when we see them. You can tell in a heartbeat if you are out of the zone of integrity, because you can feel it in your body, and there's this desperation feeling that comes over you, and you've slipped into sales modes. And maybe there's some words in your mind going, but I really need this deal. I really need this deal for this month. I need to make my numbers, right? So it's really that fine balance between staying in integrity and using the influence, or the Cialdini's principles, and staying out of desperation. Um, it happens a lot in your mind, but you have to just stay present and know what you're doing. The last thing I'll say about that is that if you are passionate about what you're offering to people, if you truly believe in it, just like you do when you see a great movie and you cannot wait to tell your best friends, oh my gosh, you have to go see this movie. It was so good. Here's why, blah, 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 blah. When you have that same passion about what you're offering to your ideal clients, the genuine nature of your passion will be the thing that will persuade people more than anything else.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Certainly, that passion does show through, and it's something that I think we've seen quite a bit. You mentioned guerrilla marketing, and all you think about there, at least in my mind, is guerrilla warfare, and where it's down and dirty and trying to get somebody, right, and snipe them, get them out from the bush somewhere. Versus what we see now, which is obviously working very, very well across many industries. That's influencer marketing, where we picked with the book Influence, and you show that and the principles that are within it. But why are so many people now becoming influencers as a job title? Right? They're doing just the opposite. They're saying, look at this great product I have, and I use this all the time, and it's so wonderful, and blah, 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 blah. Maybe they truly believe in it, which they probably do, but they're gushing about it in a way that bestows some specialness to that product. Hey, look, it makes my skin look wonderful. It allows me to cut the lawn in half the time, or whatever the things are. They're going on and on and on about the benefits that they're personally receiving. And that whole influence piece is a fantastic way, because that's typically how people would want to listen or get drawn into any kind of story, is because that whole transfer of enthusiasm that Claudia mentioned earlier. I'm excited about this. I want to share why I'm excited about this. And maybe if this is a problem you have, you'll get excited because it's a problem that I found that this solved. And that by bringing it all together, that becomes the sales process to be able to do that. When you're talking from an entrepreneur's perspective and looking at them selling their wares or their services or the solutions, the thing is, they have to be equally passionate about it, but they may not be barking up the right tree. That's where that pushing comes. Nobody wants to be sold because you're pushing to create demand where it doesn't exist. And when you create demand or try to create demand where it doesn't exist, you're going to get that icky feeling. If you're providing this information, you say, I had a great thing here, and this makes my hair look fantastic. Well, if you tell that to a bald person, it's likely that it's not going to resonate with them, right? They may be excited for you. They may be thrilled about your product that you found, but it's not the right market, right? They're not going to be influenced to purchase or investigate that product, because it doesn't matter to them. But they don't feel icky in the conversation. Like, oh, it's really great for you. I'm so happy that you found that. Not for me, but for you, that's awesome, right? So that push-pull thing and this influence piece, it does matter. And it really matters how you approach the conversations that you're having with your potential clients.
So is that word icky in the dictionary there, Michael? I love the word, because
it's a very technical sales term. Yes, icky.
That's great. No, that's exactly that's a perfect word to describe how I used to feel before I switched into the persuasion mode of doing things versus trying to sell them, because we're not all really interested in being salespeople. But as we already talked here today, we are all in the persuasion business. Everything we want to do and get and achieve in life, we need to persuade in some level people or communities that we provide value, which is where I want to go with the ickiness. If you feel icky, I love that word, it's more than likely the person you're trying to sell or persuade has not been convinced of the value in whatever you're trying to provide for them, whether it's a product, a service, a cause, whatever. So I'm a big believer in, if you want to not necessarily sell somebody, if you provide an abundance of value, proof that you can give value to them with your product or your service, it should almost be a decision that they get to by themselves, right? I mean, how many times have you had somebody try to buy your product or service or buy into your cause, and they say, well, how much does it cost? Right? If they're at that point, then you have provided value, enough value where they want to know, how much is it going to cost to get that value? So try to always provide value in the way you're persuading people, and think about your potential client or the person you're trying to get to use your product or your service. It's about them. How can you fill their needs, fix their problems, help them with their problems by providing value? And when you get into value, then you can start talking about value-based pricing, right? So you're not a commodity, more than likely. And when you provide a lot of value and people's eyes are bugging out saying, wow, there's so much value here, then when they say how much, it should be easy to ask for the numbers that you hope to get or more.
Awesome. Ooh, you're on mute, Claudio.
Mute.
Thank you. This is such a great conversation. And I want to very quickly go to the comments, because I asked on YouTube in the comments, what are you selling, right? And we don't have many live viewers right now, but I asked, what are you selling? And Samantha, the gift tailor, obviously, she's selling corporate gifting. We have Rick Pollack. He is selling presentation coaching services. And Massimo is selling a fact that a theoretical idea can become an actual product. And these are all great things, and they are the obvious things. But I would like to encourage everybody to adopt a slightly different mindset and chunk up a little bit. What are you really selling? And it's the same for everyone. Whether you are selling coaching services, whether you are selling theoretical ideas turned into actual projects, or if you're selling corporate gifting, what you're really selling at the end of the day is a good feeling. It's a good feeling, right? And now here's the trick, how to make your sales process a process of persuasion. If you take that idea that you're selling a good feeling, all you need to find out is, how specifically does the other person feel good? Because we all feel good differently, right? For some people, when they go to a punk rock concert, that evokes a great feeling, whereas maybe the classical music lover will not enjoy that experience all that much, right? So we all experience the world slightly different, and we are assigning value, as Nathan said before, value differently from person to person to person. Now, whenever I run a workshop and I get to a module on persuasion, I always run a very brief exercise. And you may recognize this exercise from the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, where he asked, sell me this pen, or gave the task of, sell me this pen. I've been using this exercise even before that movie came out, and I never used it with a pen. I usually use it with a mobile phone. And Nathan, you were recently in a workshop like this, right? And of course, I'm kind of doing one of these, head fakes, because people immediately start to launch into the sales process, right? So I say, okay, sell me your phone. I'm in the need of a new phone. Sell me your phone. And they immediately go into, well, it has this many pixels and it has so much memory and. But it's all feature-driven. And I've been doing this exercise for probably at least 10 years. Only once has somebody asked me, what do you need the phone for? How do you use the phone, right? And I think this is the big difference. If you want to move into a mode of persuasion, you need to start asking questions.
So good.
Susan.
So good. Here's the thing. I truly believe, well, first of all, I cringe when I hear the trite phrase, people buy from people they like and trust, right? That is just like the oldest sales phrase out there. And it's like, why do you think they do that? It's true. It is true. But underneath that is that there has been a relationship that's been formed. You don't like and trust a stranger. You have to believe in the person who is trying to persuade you. Like you said, give them value, Nathan, right? Love on them, give them a ton of value so that they see that you're not that shark in the water who's just out for their money and trying to push things at them. But here's where it comes into play in our world of persuasion and selling is it takes time to build that relationship. And so as your buyer moves along their journey, right, you have to consider, where are they in their need to have a problem solved? Do they think they have a problem? Do they think that problem is impeding them enough that they're seeking a solution for it? If your buyer isn't somewhere in that journey, you have no right to be influencing or persuading them to buy from you. You're back here creating the relationship and adding the value so they can understand, what it is that you truly can offer to them. So persuasion has to be fine-tuned based on where the buyer is in their temperature of need, I guess I would put it. It's just one of those things where we make that mistake all the time, is selling too soon.
Or closing too soon, right? And asking for the order too soon, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where I consider the sale is in asking for the offer or making the offer.
Of course. This is a perfect place for a comment I want to put into this talk here. First of all, I noticed that Rick, our friend in Boston, pointed out this book in a comment, and it's kind of dissolving with my green screen. Persuasion is Cialdini's newest book. It's, I forget, a couple of years old, and it's the 7th principle. So it's quite a good book, and Rick already told you it's a fantastic read. Okay, so I want to share with you something that I saw live on Saturday at a TEDx presentation that will be available in a couple of weeks. But I saw this presenter do something that completely reframed my mind in terms of how I ask or will ask for the deal in the future. And it was one of those things that you know it in your mind, but it's almost like you have a fear of doing it. So I'll simplify it. She told the story about how in auctioneering, you never go for a yes. If you go for a yes, you leave value on the table. You leave money on the table. You must go for a no in order to get to the yes, right? For 100, take it. 150, boom, boom, boom. And when you get your first no, as she said, she drops it back down. Do we have any about? Nope, sold. And that is the way you get the most value for whatever you're selling, is go for a no and then come back down. Because usually, she says, if they like you, if they want to do business with you, it's not about the money. It's about, can they afford it? Can they fit it in their budget and all of those sort of things? But you know how much you can get for that deal when you get the no, because you just bring it down from there. And she said, sometimes you're going to get a flat no and you will not get another chance to negotiate. But in her experience, she said most of the time you go into a negotiation and you get to the yes, which always tends to not leave money on the table. And I started thinking about that, and I go, yeah, we're just afraid. We go for the yes because it's guaranteed. Oh, I'm only worth $60 an hour, so I'll ask for 60. And if you get yes, 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 you're probably charging too little. I've been told this for pretty much my whole career. If you're not getting a no, you're not charging enough, or you could be potentially charging more if the value goes with what you provide, whether it's a product or a service. So I encourage all of you to try out, go for the no. And yeah, it's going to be nervous when you say, well, I would normally give a quote for 500. I don't know, triple it to 1,500 and see what happens. It might take the air out of the room. So what? Oh, is that outside your budget? Oh, what is your budget? 1,200? Oh, I can do that. Right. And this happens. So auctioneering, new way of thinking.
I love it, Nathan. And while you are in the spotlight here, Henrietta also just added a comment that I think is a perfect one for you as well, because we've had these discussions over decades about promise and delivery, over and under. Can you spend a couple of words on that, Nathan?
Well, for me personally, I like to under promise and over deliver, because in most cases, just promising people what they want is, in my particular area of business, is pretty easy to achieve. And then I just keep providing more and more and more and more, so that they not only get the value of what's promised, but I continue to add more on top of that. So they are not only happy with what they're spending, but they're overjoyed with what they're spending, potentially just want to bring me back more and more and more. I'm a big believer in over delivering and coming in early. Just yesterday, I committed to a 1-minute video for a client that wants to send out a little teaser to their community. And he said, can you have it by Wednesday of next week? I said, I'm pretty sure that should be no problem at all. And I turned it around in an hour because I had time to do it. And his response was, wow, thanks so much. Now I can get my side going sooner. I don't have to wait till next Wednesday and blah, blah. And it was like, great. So I over delivered, or by delivering early, and now it made his life even easier. So it's fun to do that. Is that kind of what you were looking for? Okay. Michael.
Yeah, I to go on what you were saying about the answer to Henrietta's question, it's sort of the same thing when it comes to entrepreneurs who are selling themselves. There's a passion that comes forward, but you also want to be authentic. As you're going through any kind of discussion with someone, you can be like, we've seen influencers, we've seen even infomercials where there's a very enthusiastic person who is pitching whatever they have and telling you the benefits of this mop and how wonderful this mop will be. But wait, there's more. And they'll go on and on about this. And all of a sudden you realize, I'm not being sold. I'm just watching somebody trying to entertain me, because this is, I've lost credibility in the clown now, because that's not something that I want to interact with or deal with. So, Slap Chop, another one. These are not the products are probably great, but the way they approached them was a very challenging thing for me to put trust into the people and how they approached it. So as we look at this for a person, when you're going to, as an entrepreneur trying to sell yourself, because that's what you're doing when you're going to an angel investor, to any kind of investors, to ask them to be participating in your organization financially, they're putting a lot of trust in you. So you need to be authentic. And sometimes that means showing your flaws so that people understand you aren't superhuman. We've had discussions about this in prior episodes of our PitchZone here. Coming on, and if you're too perfect, that will throw up red flags. But authenticity brings people together and helps them understand, okay, well, maybe you can't jump over the moon, but maybe you can do some of these really interesting things you mentioned, and the way that you approach it is very novel and unique. And I think that we make a good fit together in terms of our personalities working together. So I'm going to invest in you in this business because you're the conduit to the business. So while we're selling objects or services or solutions, when you're, as an investor, selling yourself, I want to know what that entrepreneur is really like. And it can't be perfect because no one's perfect. The other thing I wanted to mention too, when you are selling to others or you're in a sales presentation, let's put it that way, and the expectation is perhaps around the table or in a conversation that you're having right now, that it's understood that this is sort of the mode that we're in. You are the salesperson. We are the potential prospects in a discussion with you now to understand what's going on here. Early on in my career, I don't recall exactly who said this, but it stuck with me. The best way to approach any kind of sales situation is to ask questions and listen. Listening will provide you with all of those things that your customers won't be telling you unless you ask them. So if you go in and you start pitching, as I mentioned example before, a great hair product, and everyone around you has no hair on their head, it's very difficult for them to feel like this is a solution that they want to be participating in, right? So you can be enthusiastic, you can be genuine, you can be wonderful, but the reality is, if you ask a question like, "Hey, do you guys have need?" You just, based on this here, I'm going to ask a question. You don't have no hair, so it's unlikely that you'll be in the mood for my particular product or what I'm selling here, because it's unlikely that you're going to use it. But perhaps you know somebody who does and has had these kind of situations, and that you can use this influence model to maybe describe to them, and they can then describe that to the person or people who feel they may need your product or solution. That's the other thing about selling, is that oftentimes, and this is true in certainly corporate sales, the people you're talking with are not necessarily the decision makers. So when you're providing this sales pitch and the discussion that you're having with them, these folks they can be looked at as the gatekeepers, the doors that you have to get through to get to the real decision makers out there. The reality is, what you're doing is you're transferring your influencing into their hands as they go. They become your influencers. So what you need to do is to be able to provide that kind of enthusiasm and that kind of credibility that they can take and carry forward, because you have to sell them on you again and your product and your solutions, whatever, to the point where they will advocate for you on your behalf when they go into the closed door meetings that you'll never be invited to, in the discussions that you'll never participate in. So these kind of sales engagements are very difficult for salespeople to get through because they feel like they have to push their way through it. That's not a good way of going about it. It really is creating influencers on your behalf that will then sell and advocate for you when you aren't there.
Ooh, that is such a good point, Michael. I think that is the hardest situation, when you can't influence the person who does have the final yes. It's really hard. There's another situation that comes to mind for me that, as we've been chatting here, we are all seasoned professionals. Like, this isn't our first rodeo, right? We've been doing this a while. We're very confident in what we do. We know we make a difference. But how do you help someone who's a newbie, who hasn't been out there, who hasn't really tested their product and gotten their sea legs, kind of out from under them? How do you help them have the passion that we're talking about that's necessary to have authentic persuasion? Like, where does that come from? Do any of you have a magic bullet that you share with your clients when this subject comes up? Oh, you're on mute, Nathan.
I'll tell you what I tell people right now all of the time, and that is sales, whether it's sales, learning how to be better, or persuasion, learning how to be better at it. It's a lifelong process. It is not something you just learn and you just do. It's a constant improvement, a constant success and failure points about what you're trying to do, because no two people are alike, right? So you can't learn a specific method to persuade somebody or to sell somebody without being totally flexible about what happens in the real situation. And so I recommend to everybody, learn as much as you can about both topics. I wished I would have done this before. I knew that I forgot to do one thing. I was going to go to Amazon and see how many books are there on sales out there and how many books on persuasion. My guess is 5 to 10x the number of books on sales than persuasion. But it doesn't
I think you're
matter, because every one of those books can teach you something. I mean, literally, I've got sales books here, persuasion books. I take one, I go sit down, I open it up, I go to chapter 4 and I start looking at it and I pick up something just like that. It's something you can always improve. So don't kid yourself for a minute. You don't learn how to persuade and just do it for the rest of your life. You might get good at it, but there's always ways to be better and smoother and more honest, more authentic. To answer the question that Susan put up there, my magic bullet to get there: go spend some time in some improv classes. That will teach you how to get really comfortable in your own body with your voice, and you will walk out of those classes, if they're good, generally feeling more authentic about who you are, which leads to being more authentic when you're working with people.
I love that tip, Nathan. That's awesome. And what it brings to mind for me is anyone who's watching this live stream, if someone you are looking to for support in sales says they've got a lot of great scripts they can share with you, run in the other direction. Because that is the ultimate in sleazy and pushy. It is the ultimate. Sales is a craft. To your point, Nathan, sales is a craft that you have to learn. It's an art, and you keep absorbing more and more. You learn more about yourself. You learn more about your ideal clients. And from that comes natural communication. That is persuasion and not selling. So thank you. I love that.
Wow, what a session. And I think we could probably go on for another hour or two. And I think we'll probably do a part 2 of this at one point in the near future when we get the same coaches together. This is really, really absolutely outstanding advice for anybody who's out there selling, or better, persuading. And I think you've all gotten that idea that yes, we all are doing that all the time. Unfortunately, we are getting to the end of today's program. So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, please do so. Click on that subscribe and maybe even the bell that you get notified when we are going live again, which we do here with PitchZone every Thursday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. And with that, I want to really thank all of the coaches for your valuable insight. Very, very much appreciated. And anybody who has joined us live, thank you very much. And all those that watched the replay, I hope you did get some value out of this as well. And with that, I wish you all a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And we shall see each other again next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.